All right, it is another edition of Mr. Irrelevant on a Monday after a Packers brutal loss at Denver. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Everlight Solar Studio downtown Madison. I'm going to waste no time. We're going to talk Badgers in about 10 minutes. David Gilreath, who you remember from the incredible kick return against Ohio State in 2010, will join us in about 10 minutes to talk Badgers. We'll preview Ohio State. We'll talk some memories. We'll talk about the win over Illinois. Because that's the exciting part of today's show, is that the Badgers, with a freshman quarterback, found a way to come back against Illinois on the road and win, score 18 points in the fourth quarter, something we've seen the Packers do already this year. So we'll talk about that with David Gilreath. But we got to start with whatever the heck we saw yesterday. And that was the Packers losing 19-17 to the Denver Broncos on the road. I have like 14 issues, so we'll rifle throw those, and then we'll talk to David Gilreath. So Packers fall to 2-4 is the first note, right? Like 2-4 versus 3-3. You feel a lot different. Even if the Packers, let's say that kick is missed by Will Lutz to take the lead, you still feel bad. You still feel like that was a bad game. But you feel better because you have more time to figure out in your 500 football team. You cannot continue to play football without scoring touchdowns in the first half, without scoring points in the first half. The Packers have not scored a touchdown in the first half since September 17th. That's over a month ago. It's 36 days ago. It was week 2, the last time the Packers scored a touchdown in the first half. You're not going to win football games without scoring in the first half. You're just not. If it takes 2 full quarters, 30 minutes of a 60-minute game time for your offense to get going, get its feet underneath them, and to get a roll going, you're not going to beat football teams, even bad ones. And yesterday was an example of maybe you can beat a bad team by scoring all your points in the first half and finally finding some momentum and playing complementary football offensively in the second half. But it still wasn't good enough against a bad team. And yesterday is a really good reminder that the Green Bay Packers are also a bad football team. While they have lost to bad football teams the last 2 weeks, the last 2 games, I should say, they've played in the Las Vegas Raiders and now the Denver Broncos, the Packers are also a bad football team. You can make whatever you want about this youth movement. You can make whatever you want about the injuries. I'm not a fan of excuses. The matter of the fact is the Packers are not a good football team, and that was proven yesterday again. But to go through another 2 quarters to start a game without a game plan that works efficiently, and to go through another 2 quarters without scoring a touchdown is a serious, serious red flag. And I've heard this point made several times, whether it's on Twitter or on ESPN Madison Radio. The Packers, their last 2 games have had, going into that Las Vegas game, they had 11 days of prep. Into yesterday's game, they had 13 days to prep. And they've come out completely flat and without a plan offensively. So, yeah, that's really concerning. It's going to be a weird year. We always knew that. In retrospect, I wish the Packers wouldn't have kicked the crap out of the Bears in week 1. Because that reinstalled in my brain faith that this team could be a playoff team and could be good enough and would beat bad teams and would get wins where they should, right? Like they have several bad teams on the schedule this year. The Bears in week 1 were one of them. The last 2 weeks, 2 more. In 2 weeks, they play the Rams. Next week, they play the Vikings, right? Like it was reinstalled in my head that the Packers would beat bad teams. And that has now been uninstalled in my brain because the Packers are a bad team. And every game they're going to be in is going to be a dogfight with bad teams. And when they play good teams, like the Chiefs and the Lions, it might just be a complete whooping because they aren't good on either side of the ball. The defense seems to have improved, although I don't know that it has, and now injuries are just wiping them out. No Jair yesterday or Devondre Campbell entering that game. Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker, Darnell Savage all leave that game. That's 5 starters of your 11. That's not helping you. The defense only allowed 19 points, 4 field goals, only 1 touchdown. It's good enough. You should win that football game. Jordan Love is where we go to next in Strouf's notes. And I want him to be good so bad. I really want Jordan Love to be a good quarterback. It's starting to become evident he probably isn't the guy. I think he had a decent game up until that last throw, which was the interception, which we'll talk about too. But I thought he had a good game. I thought he was fine. And he made, he's not super efficient. I thought he was better at that yesterday against Denver. But there are so many things relating to Jordan Love that are red flags. And, he has some of the intangibles and the attitude that you like, right? Taking accountability and not letting a ton phase him. You like that about him. But some of the decision-making is questionable. And some of the play calling from Matt LaFleur is telling. I heard Mark Tauscher say this yesterday on the Green Bay Game Day postgame show, or Green Bay Game Night postgame show on ESPN Wisconsin, that if you have to run out trick plays, that essentially is telling a defense we can't beat you straight up. And Denver is probably the worst defense you're going to see this year outside of Patrick Surtain. Dontavian Wicks throwing a pass is cool. Like, don't get me wrong, it's fun, it's sexy, but I don't know that you need that in a Week 7 game against a bad team that you should beat straight up. But if you're looking to instill juice and excitement into an offense, I guess trick plays might be one way to do it. So jury's still out on Jordan Love, but it is certainly leaning more toward probably not the guy than the guy right now. Quick thing on Matt LaFleur. Goes back to the play calling. Goes back to the lack of creativity early. It's frustrating, man. It's really frustrating. Just to make the point again, you had 11 days to prepare for the Raiders. You had 13 days to prepare for the Broncos. You put up a whopping 0 points in those first half, at least 0 touchdowns, and you haven't scored a first-half touchdown since September 17th. That's 36 days ago. That's so bad. Matt LaFleur's not on the hot seat. This will be his team, I believe, into next year as well. But we've got to see something change. All right, the good news this weekend, the Badgers come back and beat Illinois. How exciting is that? Braden Locke looks awesome. I was really excited about that. Big man touchdown. This team, they got to win on the road. That's a hard thing to do, especially with a backup quarterback. It was a weird game, but a win's a win. Now they focus on number 3, Ohio State, this Saturday at Camp Randall Stadium. We'll recap a little bit more of that Illinois game, and we will preview a little bit more of that Ohio State game coming up next. David Gilreath. I call him a Badgers legend. I hope he's okay with that because he is a legend in my eyes. David Gilreath, Badgers legend, joins us next. It's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Excited to talk with Badgers legend. I'm calling him a legend, David Gilreath, in just a moment. But one final time, got to tell you about the Door County Getaway that my friends at Door County Distillery are giving away this week. You're running out of time to sign up. Go to doorcountydistillery.com/DoorCountyGetaway. And what you win is a 2-night stay, free 2-night stay at Stone Harbor Resort in Sturgeon Bay. You'll get free tours and tastings at Door County Distillery, Door County Coffee, Door County Candle Company, and you'll win a $500 gift card to each of those locations. $1,500 in gift cards, a 2-night stay, tours and tastings. It's an amazing getaway, and you're running out of time to sign up. A winner is selected Wednesday. Go to the website, doorcountydistillery.com/DoorCountyGetaway to sign up today. Seriously, today or tomorrow. You're running out of time. Go do it. doorcountydistillery.com/DoorCountyGetaway. All right, let's chat with David Gilreath. So I've been looking forward to this since we had it booked because I knew the Packers game might get weird, and it did, and they lose, and I'm disappointed and I'm depressed. So I've been looking forward to this conversation because we can talk about the Badgers' comeback win and go down memory lane a little bit. David Gilreath joins us now. David, appreciate you doing this, my man. How are you?
Oh, yeah. Appreciate you guys giving me a call. I'm doing okay. Good Badger win. I'm not the biggest Packer fan, so that wasn't too much of a surprise for me. But it was good. It was a couple of key matchups this weekend.
No doubt. And so your NFL fandom, where does it lie? Because obviously you grew up in Minnesota. Does that make you a Vikings fan?
It's supposed to, but I grew up, a Cowboy fan. I was Michael Irvin,
Emmitt Smith,
Troy, and I grew up. That's how I grew up. I watched, Randy Moss, build the Metrodome. Or at least tear it down now. He helped. So that was nice to watch, that time period.
So you heard the there. Our producer Hunter Vaughn, also a Cowboys fan. So I'm outnumbered right now. Good thing we don't play the Cowboys this year. Otherwise, I'd be really pissed off at this conversation. But anyway, Badgers win over Illinois, David. I mean, that was a wacky game. It's a first start for Braden Locke, a young freshman, redshirt freshman quarterback. But they get it done. Little trickery at the end. Nolan Rucci, the offensive lineman, catches a touchdown. They find a way to score 18 points in the fourth quarter and win. If you're in that locker room, is it kind of the mentality of, hey, it might have been ugly, but a win's a win. It's on the road. It's a Big Ten win. That's the only way we're going to look at it. Would that kind of be the mentality you'd have?
Yeah, it was a big win. You know, the backup quarterback coming in a big game. It was a big game on both. Had a lot of storylines with Coach B being on the other side,
Right.
Coach Bielema. You know, it was the backup quarterback. It just gives you that confidence going forward. And any win in the Big Ten is a big win. It was tough on my end because I'm really good friends with Aaron Henry. You know, just to watch him blow a 18-point lead as a defensive coordinator, it was tough to watch. You know, but it was nice for the Badgers to win, and Coach Fickle to get a big win on the road.
Absolutely, and you bring that. I'm glad you bring that up. All the connections, right? Like obviously the Braden Locke and Tanner Mordecai news kind of overshadowed all the connections this week. But Jimmy Leonard too, right? He's a consultant for that team. You mentioned Aaron Henry and Bielema. So when they're not playing the Badgers, I imagine you're probably rooting for a lot of those guys to succeed, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of guys on that Illinois. You mentioned Jimmy Leonard, Coach Bielema, Aaron Henry, Terrence Jamison.
Yeah.
Mark Terrasani's over on the administrative side. He was director of player ops when I was a football player at Wisconsin. It's a lot of connections, you know. So I always root for Illinois, and Coach B, he's always got a seat at the barbecue pit for me.
Always got a seat at the barbecue pit. I like that. That's fantastic, David. So it seems like we have an annual chat about this time of year. Me, you, and Jim Rutledge typically. No Rutledge today with me, but I think it's always fun to reflect. Like, is it hard to believe for you? It's been 13 years since that big win over Ohio State under the lights at Camp Randall. Your amazing kickoff return. Like, it's been 13 years, David. That's hard for me to believe. Is that crazy for you?
Yeah, it does. It is crazy when I think 13 years. I'm more thinking it's been 13 years since we actually beat Ohio State. Has it been that long? It's been, you know, but it doesn't feel like it. More just I think people keep the kickoff pretty relevant.
Yeah.
And different places I go as I stick within the sports sector, it becomes a relevant topic, and it's fun. You know, I do find an appreciation for it. It really confirms that I made the right decision going to college, going to Wisconsin, and a lot of things weighed into that, and you know, your future and what that could hold, and it just, as you sit here 13 years removed, you feel like a appreciation for that time period, you know, as a Badger. So all kudos to the fans and supporters.
Well, it's as a Badgers fan, I'm obviously biased, but it's cool when you have those moments, right? Like the badass moments that you can relive. And we Ben Brust, one of our teammates, right? The shot against Michigan comes back up every year, and your kickoff comes back up every year. I just love looking back on those moments. Brad Nortman, another one of our teammates, his fake punt against Iowa, right? Like there's so many of those moments that get brought up annually, and it's like, man, we are so lucky as Wisconsin Badgers fans to have so many of those cool moments to reflect back on. Obviously, though, we'd like to make some more memorable moments, and Saturday is certainly a tough opportunity to make one, but it's a fun one, right? I think this is the first time it's been a night game at Camp Randall against Ohio State since your kickoff return. What's the atmosphere difference, David, between like an 11 o'clock or 2:30 versus a 6:30 under the lights, late October, Halloween weekend? Like, I imagine the atmosphere, although it's always great in Camp Randall, it's got to be a little bit different when it's under those lights.
Yeah, you feel the build up. You know, you have, as a player, you have all day to prepare for it, and all week, but you know, all day your nerves are running on high alert. And I remember when we did play Ohio State the night before, they're setting up, you know, the cameras and the sky cameras and you know, the ESPN game days coming in. So it's a little different feeling than it would be on a day game. The crowd's a little bit more, you know, they feel the student section a little bit quicker than they might have in, you know, 11 a.m. games. People have some alcoholic influences, I would say, you know, as you lead to that. So yeah, it's a different atmosphere, and I think as 18 to 22-year-olds, you have a little bit more time to think about, you know, what could happen that day. So it's just definitely a different atmosphere, and the entire country's watching at that point.
Yeah, it's a big spotlight, especially for a team that is. You mentioned Lou Fickell, like, has gone through so much change in the last 12 months. It's been a little bit over a year the Paul Chris decision was made, and Jimmy Leonard was the interim, and then we're approaching a year already in just a month from Luke Fickell being brought to Madison. What's your early impressions of the Luke Fickell staff? Obviously, it was a big hire given his background. But it's hard to turn a 6-6 program around to a national championship level in 1 year. What are your early impressions?
Yeah, I give him grace. You have to give him some grace to bring in his offense philosophy, his defense philosophy, his own recruits, and give him some time. There was a lot of hype around the decision, and it's tough when you have to come in after a couple of legends, Jimmy Leonard, Paul Chris. It's tough. It's tough to follow that act, but it's part of being part of this program. And early impressions that he's created a lot of excitement around Wisconsin, and I think you got to give him some time. You got to give him some time to implement his offense, have his own recruits, and it seems like he's won a few big games so far. He lost one big game. I would say that Washington State game was tough, but again, I give him some grace, and he's shown he's a track record of building a great program over at Cincinnati, and I think if you give him his time and his quarterback and his players he should be just fine. And he has the foundation here in Wisconsin. It's not like he's going into to rebuild Indiana. He's got a great foundation in Wisconsin, and so I think that also doesn't allow him some grace from some fans, because you're not just building a program from scratch. You do have a foundation in place, and you have to win now. And he's doing that, but I don't think we can expect him to win a national championship this year.
No, I think that is perfect perspective, because I think you mentioned the buzz, right? And the buzz is good, but sometimes it can be dangerous, I think, for fans more so than guys like you or Chris Orr or Brad Nortman, who I've mentioned, or Mark Tauscher, right? Some of the former players that we work with regularly. Like, you guys understand a little bit better than maybe an average Joe like me, who just cheering for the best. I think the foundation is such an important part of it, and you're totally right. Like, there is such a history embedded here of winning and good culture, and so he walks into a stable environment, despite obviously some of the tough decisions that were made last year. But I think you're right, and so far so good. Obviously, the Iowa loss too is always a tough one, because it's a trophy game. Obviously you were part of that rivalry, and. But overall, I think you're right. I think in 2 years, this thing could look really, number one, different, but number two, really darn good. So we will see.
Yeah, and he seems like he's embraced the change of college athletics. What can you do? The transfer portal, he dove right into that. That's become a relevant topic today. NIL has become a big deal, and he seemed to embrace all those changes, and we've gotten some players that we normally wouldn't have gotten in the past from afar, that I've seen, and he's done some great things, and especially when you got a guy like Mordecai to come over that's thrown 4,000 yards at a previous school. I don't think we would have gotten that type of player, in the past. So I think he's done a great job. Even that kid from USC, I think it's Williams.
CJ Williams.
That guy doesn't come. Yeah, that guy doesn't come over. 2 years ago. It's just not maybe the type of player we recruit, or not the type of system that he would want to be a part of. So I think, Fickell's doing a great job. I think we got some things in place. Just give him, I think, you got to give him time. Maybe not 4 years like it used to be, but because we got to win now, and the transfer portal also allows you to be able to win now, and he's shown that he can do that, and give him a couple of years and see where he's at. If not, you can always give me a call, but I don't think I'll say, I don't like to coach unless it's a 2-year-old out here running around.
So I was just about to ask, like, what's the life of David Gilreath like these days? I try to catch up with you every year. So what are you up to? You mentioned there was some coaching at one point, wasn't there?
No, I don't. Maybe the 2.5-year-old. Maybe that's something that I would
fair
consider. But no, actually, about a year ago, I was with the University of Wisconsin in a development role.
Right.
I was back doing philanthropy and fundraising, but now I'm out here in the Bay Area. I have a 2.5-year-old. Wife got a job at NBC, so that's been fun. That's been an adjustment. In my actual current role, I work at Cal Berkeley, so I'm in their athletic department. So I got a couple more. I got to deal with from both sides at this point. I got the Aaron Rodgers and Marshawn Lynch. I got to keep pulling at that type of love, and I got the Wisconsin. So, but yeah. So, long story short, I work in their athletic department. Oversee the budget for a few sports: tennis, golf, field hockey, track and field. make sure that their finances are in place. It's fun, it's been fulfilling being out here in the Bay Area, and also I want to show appreciation for my time at Wisconsin. I don't think if I don't have that time in development at Wisconsin that I get this role at Berkeley. The credibility that I was able to gain there and the knowledge, it transferred over, and they were like, "Hey, come on over to Berkeley." I said, "Sure, all right, cool, here we go." So shout out to Chad Kimmel, Derek Steinbach. They gave me an opportunity in the athletic department at Wisconsin, and I'll be forever grateful.
That's fantastic. Well, the weather a lot better in Cal than it is in Wisconsin and Minnesota this type of year, David. So I think you made the right choice.
Maybe not Berkeley. Maybe not Berkeley. I don't know. It's a little tougher up there. Where I live on the peninsula side.
Yeah.
It's a little closer to Palo Alto. It's probably about 75, 80 degrees every day, so I can't complain. But when I go over to Berkeley, it feels like a Minneapolis fall at all
Okay,
times.
are you being dramatic, or does it act? Because it doesn't get like -20 out there, does it?
I don't remember how that feels. It's been a long time since I lived in Madison. I don't, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit. It has been a while.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I see you're wearing like a zip up right now, David. Did you just say it was like 75 degrees out?
Yeah. One of the few Wisconsin gear I still own, so I had to throw it on. I'm sweating my butt off now, but it's about 75. But it's like one of my favorite sweaters. I got it when I was an employee here at Wisconsin.
Nice.
So.
Nice. Well, that's awesome, dude, and so good to hear you're doing well, and fatherhood good. How's fatherhood? 2.5-year-old.
That's the best work. That's the best time. I almost kept her home. I'm working from home today, and I almost kept her home with me. She's something else. She's it's hard to explain. I don't know if you have any children, but
I don't.
It's really fulfilling. It's a different type of meaningful work when you see her develop. And I say something as simple as watching her understand the concept of yesterday versus today versus tomorrow. Just seeing her figure out what that means, and it's just kind of like where did she get that? And the other day she's asking for a pacifier, and I say, "Hey, be patient. And the next day I'm trying to get her into the car seat, and I'm, "Come on, get in, Camila, get in. Be patient, Papa, be patient." I said, "Wow,
yeah."
She understands. She gets, I'm like, all right, those are different things that I'm not used to seeing her. That's my girl, and it's been fun. It's cool to raise her in the Bay Area. The job. I go and have my fun over there, do what I have to do, get home, take care of her, exercise, and it's a good time. I don't have any complaints right now, but shout out to Wisconsin. A lot of this doesn't happen if it wasn't for the kick return, or just if it wasn't for the my time as an undergrad and using that as a springboard, propelling me to that next step. So it's shout out to Wisconsin and Madison. So I always have love for you guys.
That's fantastic, David. And I'm sticking to unclehood for now. Maybe in a few years we can talk fatherhood. But I'm not ready for that next step, man. You're taking it on. You're doing a great job. And so I love that.
Appreciate it. I didn't think I was ready either. I didn't think I was ready. But then I figured out. I think none of us are ready. I still don't think I'm ready for that. It's 2.5, and I'm like, I'm still doing this. All right, I still got this. All right, okay.
I love that she's giving you the hey, be patient, Dad. Be patient. 2.5. I just imagine at 12.5 what that comeback will sound like, right?
Yeah. Probably a little bit different, but.
Before we let you go, and it's always good catching up with you, David. What are you thinking this Saturday? Wisconsin, number 3, Ohio State, under the lights at Camp Randall, a situation you're familiar with. Can Bucky pull it out with a backup quarterback?
I'm just thinking about history. Before our win in 2010, right? There was it 2003? I think they beat him with a backup quarterback. Is it Sorgi?
I think you're right.
I think so. I could be off, but I think it was a back. Again, we're not Indiana. We're not Purdue. We have a great foundation in place. Got a great program. You put us under the lights, some funny things could happen. It's Halloween weekend. He gained some confidence this weekend with a big win. You never know. A couple turnovers under the lights. You just never know. I don't think this is the same Ohio State we've seen the last 5-6 years, or even 13 years, right? So
I agree.
I believe we have a chance. We get out there and don't turn the ball over. We get a couple scores. You never know. I'm going with Wisconsin. I have to go with Wisconsin.
You have to.
But we'll see what happens. I think this is a good year. They don't have a number 1 pick at quarterback. They have a few weapons on the outside, but I think on our side we still have that. We got the run game. Our defense is playing tough, and I think we gained a lot of confidence this past weekend by beating Illinois. So what is it? Maybe Wisconsin 24-17?
Oh, I like it. I like it, David. The defense is coming to play on Saturday, according to David Gilreath. And yeah, as you talk about history, right? I always like to throw in this line, as the great American orator J. Cole once said, history repeats itself, and that's just how it goes. So hopefully that's how that goes on Saturday as Ohio State comes to town. David, this was great, man. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate that. Appreciate giving me a call. Thank you.
Anytime, man. That's Wisconsin Badger legend, David Gilreath, here on Mr. Irrelevant. All right, coming up next, what Strouf learned. We're going to pull in Alex Strouf, one of the producers here at ESPN Wisconsin, because we had a text exchange on Saturday, which was absolutely bananas to me. I learned something about tortilla chips. I'll tell you what that is coming up next. It's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf. All right, it's been a tough year for our football teams in the state of Wisconsin, and we will talk about it on the Great Dane Huddle coming up Wednesday night this week from 6 to 8 p.m., a 2-hour special. We may have a special guest in the making, but we'll hold off on the announcement for now. The Great Dane Huddle live from the Great Dane Pub and Brewing Company in Fitchburg this Wednesday. I'll be joined by former Badgers Derek Engler and Tarek Saleh. We'll talk about the come-from-behind victory for the Wisconsin Badgers over Illinois on Saturday, with a big one looming on Saturday at Camp Randall Stadium. Number 3 Ohio State. We'll preview that matchup as well. And as you've already heard in this program, I'm depressed about the Packers, so we'll talk about that. 6 to 8 p.m. on the Great Dane Huddle this Wednesday at the Great Dane Pub and Brewing Company in Fitchburg. Alex Strouf going to join me next as we play What Strouf Learned. All right, thanks again to David Gilreath for joining us to talk a little Badgers and walk down memory lane a little bit. He's such a good dude. Like I made the reference there in the conversation with him. It seems like it's an annual occurrence because before every Ohio State game, we try to bring him in and have a chat with him. So always good to catch up with him. All right, time now for What Strouf Learned. We pull in my friend and fellow producer here at ESPN Madison, Alex Strouf.
Fellow Alex.
Fellow Alex as well. Great first name. Your parents did you well. I don't even know where to start with this. So we were texting. Was this Friday night?
Friday night might technically be Saturday morning.
Yeah, it was late into the evening because we were both working late Friday. We had a great high school game, high school football game on the ESPN Madison airwaves and YouTube page, and so we got home later. And it's a Friday night, so we were cutting it loose a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I texted you that I was eating Ruffles.
Ruffles chips, yeah.
The sour cream and cheddar, and I made the reference that I would probably put that on the chip Mount Rushmore.
Well, it was near the top of the chip power ranking, but I think that you can't have just one best chip, so you have to have a Mount Rushmore of chips. And then we got talking about which other chips belong on that list.
Yeah, so we determined probably the potato chip, right? I mean, that's probably a good one. I threw out the Cool Ranch Dorito.
I'm in for that. I like that. See, potato chips so boring. But speaking of boring chips, it got me thinking about the tortilla chip. And I think that it did so much for the chips and dip game that it belongs on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right about that. So you then said to me, what came first, the tortilla chip or the potato chip?
A valid question. I didn't know.
And I said I would guess potato. I would guess the potato chip came before the tortilla chip.
No shot.
But tortillas have been around for thousands and thousands of years.
Exactly.
Yes. And nobody.
You got to use your brain, Strouf.
Oh, I'm about to school you. Bring you to school, Hunter. So the potato chip was invented in 1817. The tortilla chip was not invented until the 1940s.
Unreal.
Now,
I don't believe you.
I then said, shout out Wikipedia, wait a minute. I'm reading these texts verbatim. Shout out Wikipedia, wait a minute. So you're telling me people in their 90s, there was a period in their life where they didn't have tortilla chips. And then I continued to read the tortilla chip Wikipedia page. Tortilla chips heavily gained their popularity in the 1970s, which means like, if you call your grandparents, or some of you, for our older audience, if you call your parents who were born in like the 40s or the 50s or the 60s, there was a legitimate decade or two where the tortilla chip was not a part of their life.
But how did they do chips and salsa?
I don't think it was a thing until the 1970s.
Oh, my gosh.
They were doing like crostinis. Like,
they're just rubbing tortillas in salsa, like eating like flour tortillas?
Yeah. So I learned that the tortilla chip is only like 50 years old.
It's unreal. And, but to go back a second because
Yeah.
the gap, like potatoes, obviously they've just been around. They're a plant. They've been around forever. The tortilla, though, the first ever tortilla, as I learned, was made in 10,000 BC.
Correct.
Which is wild because like humans are the only animal that goes out of their way to put multiple ingredients together, and like that dude revolutionized the world. Whoever it was that made the first tortilla, oh my gosh.
Facts. That's a fact. 10,000 BC. I mean, and to your point, we're the only species that what'd you say, mix stuff together?
Effectively, yeah, to make food.
Yeah, and it just blows my mind that we went 130 years between the potato chip and the tortilla chip, right? Like, how did we go through? That's essentially 3 generations of people, probably 4 at that day and age, of people who had potato chips or knew that they existed, right? You're just thinly slicing a potato and frying it or baking it or whatever you did back then, putting it in the sun for a couple of days. I don't know, right? But then it took 130 years for somebody to be like, that'd be a good idea to do with a tortilla.
But the thing is, hard shell tortillas had to be around. Hunter, can you look that up?
I will effort that.
How long
like-
a hard shell tortilla was around?
Right, because that's
Yeah.
just a big tortilla chip.
That's true. So what came first, the tortilla chip or the tortilla shell, hard shell?
Hard shell.
I would go chip. So I'm thinking
No.
maybe hard shell tacos weren't a thing, because if you think about it this way, right? Like tacos are not an American food,
Correct.
but it seems like mostly it is an American thing to use hard shells. Because if you go to like a legitimate whatever it is, Venezuelan or Mexican restaurant, you're having soft shell tacos with tortillas that were created in 10,000 BCE.
But what about like tostadas?
Tostadas, true.
But maybe that's a new thing. I don't know.
Hard shell tacos, mid-1950s.
Yeah.
My world is rocked right now.
See, like,
How did it take 10,000 years to say, hey, this awesome thing that we already have, let's just deep fry it? Like,
because
we
I
were
don't think deep
frying,
fryers were around in
but
the
like,
10,000 BCE.
You can fry things without a deep fryer. I'm just using the phrase deep
No,
fry, but like you can fry things. We've been doing that for thousands of years.
So I want somebody, and maybe I'll do this before Wednesday's episode, but I need to call my grandfather. He was born in the 40s. And I need to ask him if he remembers not having a tortilla chip until he was like 35 years old.
Yeah, my grandma too. It's like, man, I'm struggling to comprehend this, but of course there's inventions all the time, right? But it's become such a big part of who I am. I'm the chips and salsa guy. I have chips
That's
at
your
home.
thing?
Salsa, I've got multiple jars at all times of salsa in my
Really?
fridge. Absolutely. Because it's so good. It's so good.
It is. It always hits. I'm not disagreeing with that, but you have multiple jars?
Yeah, for sure. I've got my like.
So are you in, because Maddie Hayes was on the show last week, and she said I'm in my mustard era, where I'm like constantly buying mustard. I think I just counted the other day. I have 11 bottles of mustard in my
That's too
fridge
much
right
mustard.
now.
I don't have
but they're all
any
different.
mustard.
They're all different purposes. So like I have a jalapeno mustard, I have a normal mustard, I have like a ground mustard, I have a garlic aioli mustard, I have a what's the one I just got? I can't even remember what it is. But I have like a bunch of different types of mustard that all serve different purposes.
Listen, if I'm in my chips and salsa phase, it's a long phase. It happened around the time I went to college. I started eating chips and salsa, and now I've got mango salsa, peach salsa, spicy salsa, my normal like go-to, just like run-of-the-mill Walmart brand salsa.
Is it good?
It's good enough. It's good at being mediocre salsa, and that's all it needs to be.
How's that mango salsa? That sounds good.
It's good.
That
Yeah,
sounds
it's,
good.
It's really good. I like to cook with it because that'll be like
Yes.
I'm making fajitas and put a little bit of salsa in there to like liven it up. There's a little bit of spice, a little bit of.
So I do this with mustard, and I don't know if that freaks people out, but like I made white chicken chili last week. I put some mustard in there.
Sure. So I'm not a mustard person. I actually just had a at-length conversation, put an Instagram poll up on my personal account because I was like, I don't have mustard. And my girlfriend thinks that it's ridiculous that I don't own mustard.
I'm sorry, I'm distracted. I'm watching the Pat McAfee show on ESPN, which is on the TV here at the Everlight Solar Studio. He just sunk a basketball shot from like 150 feet away while Kelsey Plum, a two-time WNBA champion, was on a show. That was wild.
Mean, that's like a normal thing on that show.
I know.
They do that like all the time.
But he doesn't sink them all the time.
But I feel like once a week they're hitting a deep shot.
But when
You shouldn't be
Kelsey
that
Plum is your
shocked.
guest, that's impressive.
This
Anyway.
is a live podcast reviewing another podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is the stuff you get on Mr. Irrelevant. All right, so what we learned is the tortilla chip very young.
So wild.
Yeah. So let's test this out though. What's the chip Mount Rushmore? So are we agreeing sour cream and cheddar Ruffles?
Yeah. It's
Cool
so
Ranch
good.
Doritos?
Yeah, I think so. Which is a type of tortilla chip.
That's
corn
true.
chip.
That's true. It is a corn chip. I would go normal blank tortilla chip.
Damn, I hate it because they're so mediocre. Like you will never find me just like mindlessly eating normal potato chips. I can't do it.
Tortilla chips.
Sorry, no, potato chips.
I'm talking tortilla chips right now.
Okay, tortilla chips, yes.
And then, but potato chips I would eat. But like I would go.
Potato chips are the George Washington of it. You have to have them.
No, I think
they were first. They started the whole chip
I actually
thing.
believe one of us called the tortilla chip the George Washington.
I did.
Yeah.
No. I did not. I called the potato chip the George Washington. Or at least that's that's what I was thinking. I had that
the
exact same
parallel,
thought.
yeah.
I'm not good at presidential history.
He was number one, bro.
I
Well,
did
know
Gerald
that. I know.
Ford trivia
But
on Willoughby's house. I got you.
Who else is on Mount Rushmore? Lincoln,
Yes.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Roosevelt, and who?
Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, so Thomas Jefferson's old. So would he be the tortilla chip?
He was number 3.
So he'd be the tortilla chip.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think he'd be the Teddy Roosevelt because
No,
he's not that old.
But think about it. Like, we weren't throwing flavors on potato chips until the 1900s. Like, it probably went potato chip, tortilla chip, other chip. Like, Cool Ranch Doritos were probably a product
flavored
of like
chips
the
is a very
1990s.
late 70s.
I know,
into
but
the
the whole
80s
thing, the whole reason this conversation is happening right now is because we're all shocked with how recent the tortilla chip is.
Yes, I agree. And potato chips are only 200 years old.
Yeah, but that checks out. I don't know, like.
I feel like that. That shocked me. So I would go. All right. So Washington potato chip.
Yes.
Who do we say is number 3 again? Who's number 3?
The third president ever?
I unplugged my headphones, so I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Thomas Jefferson. So when I talk, you unplug your headphones. Okay, I see
All
how
right,
it
so
is.
Jefferson's 3. So that's a tortilla chip.
Yeah. Okay.
Who's next up in the
That'd be
order of-
Lincoln.
yeah, Lincoln was 13, right?
16. Only 3
yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm close enough. That would be the Cool Ranch Dorito.
I feel like that's not right. I feel like you got to switch it. I feel like sour cream and cheddar happened before the Cool Ranch Dorito,
Yeah,
which I
Cool
would
Ranch
not be
Dorito
doing.
came out in like the early 2000s.
I was gonna say.
we
I
go back-
remember the marketing campaign.
We're going back to
my
Wikipedia.
gosh. And this is one of those moments where you got 6 years on us,
Yeah.
and it shows.
I remember when those came out, and they
Dang,
were.
that's
It was
cool.
amazing.
All right, so I gotta Google some stuff now because we gotta figure this. But are we good with those 4? I guess would be my question.
What about the Cheeto? Now I prefer
Yes,
baked Cheeto, but
I'm a big
Cheetos
Cheeto
are crazy.
guy. I'm a big Cheeto guy.
Oh, I was gonna say Cheeto might knock off the Cool Ranch Dorito.
I just feel like it's such a classic.
Now, but if he's going to be Thomas Jefferson, it makes sense because his whole thing is talk quiet and carry a big stick. And you know
That
what?
was Teddy Roosevelt, but
Or wait, sorry, what did I say? Thomas Jefferson?
we've gotten so confused.
There are so many presidents. Anyway,
are, that's true.
Teddy Roosevelt's thing was talk quietly and carry a big stick, and a Cheeto is, in essence,
a
the
big
biggest
stick.
stick
It is the
of the
big
chip
stick.
game.
You're right. So Ruffles, you're right. We're older than Doritos. I can't find the actual manufacture date of the sour cream and onion, but Ruffles came
Cheddar.
out in 1948, which is like before tortilla chips were a big deal.
Oh my goodness.
But these were probably the Ruffles without flavoring. You're
Right, just normal
yeah.
Ruffles. But so these are just like the regular schmegular potato chip, but still, normal Ruffles are better than Lay's. I would say personally.
Yeah.
But that's a take for a different day.
Guys,
Okay.
no.
I love baked chips.
So what
and
is
I know
the
I'm
Mount
weird.
Rushmore of chips?
It's
Potato, tortilla. What are the other
sour cream and cheddar,
two? Okay,
and the Cheeto. I think
Yep,
the Cheeto's
Cheeto.
got to be there.
Yep.
I'm good with it. I'm good with it. Somebody make a Photoshop design of those 4 chips on the faces.
Let's just throw more onto Maddie's plate. She can do some graphic design stuff for us.
Throw it on the faces, but I still want the faces in. So I don't know if this is disrespectful, but
A little bit.
I want a Lay's potato chip covering George Washington's face, but I still want his hairdo.
They have the potato chips that look like presidents already. Like you can Google that and find that. That's like
Shut
a big.
up.
Did you not know this? It's a huge thing. People
Yeah.
sell these for
Yep.
thousands
do
of
you
dollars.
believe there's a Cheeto that looks like Abe Lincoln?
Guarantee it.
Actually, that's probably because he's got a
The
very
hat.
slender,
And
tall.
the hat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, this is enough for me today. Big thanks to David Gilreath and Alex Strouf for joining the show. Big thanks, as always, to Hunter Vaughn for running the show. We'll be back Wednesday. I kind of ignored the Packers outside of like the first 6 minutes of the show.
That's okay.
I
They're
think I'm going to put myself through hell and rewatch the game. So I think I'm going to come back with second watch through thoughts. because I need to see what the hell's going wrong. Like it's really bad. Like
They're just a bad team.
It would be. They are a bad team, but it would be one thing if they didn't look like a good team at some point this year. And of course, teams have fluke games, which maybe Chicago was that for the Packers. But then you have the 18-point comeback in the fourth quarter against the Saints. There are some reasons where I feel like this team could still win 6, 7, 8 games, but they got to figure something out really fast. They haven't scored a touchdown on offense since September 17th. That's 36 days ago, in the first half, that is. First half touchdown since September 17th. That's an issue. All right, we'll do it again Wednesday. This has been Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf.